What's up, everybody? It's your boy. I hope you are ready for some hot takes and a hot man. Because if you are at the right place. You are at the right YouTube channel for that. Today I'm going to be ranking every single album that released in 2024 that I listened to. Disclaimer, this is mostly rap albums. I haven't decided if the title is going to have albums or rap albums in it, but either way, it is mostly rap albums, and there's some non-rap in there. I know last time I made a video like this, I got a lot of comments that were like, why does it say rap albums and you rank Lil Yachty's Let's Start Here? So it's mostly rap albums. It's not only rap albums, okay? So there's a lot of albums. I listened to 143 albums from 2024, and catching up and getting the ratings together is why it's taking me until March to get this video fucking done, which is crazy. So I'm going to try not to spend too much time on each album, but if I am passionate about one, I will spend some time on it. So this video is probably going to be pretty long, hopefully not too much longer than last year's, although it is a lot more albums. I did spend a lot of time on them. So yeah, we're going to get into it. We got our parental advisory explicit content hoodie again, like we did last year, just because it's fitting, and we're just going to fucking get into it. We're not going to talk too much about each one, so bear with me. Starting off, we're going to go bottom to top just for simplicity's sake, and I'll have the album cover show up beneath me, as well as the rating that I gave them. So yeah, if you want more detail that I didn't give, you could go to my album of the year account. It's just the same name as the YouTube channel. Go on Album of the Year. I have reviews written. Yeah. So we're going to get into it. The worst album of 2024 was, by far, French Montana's Mac and Cheese 5. So I'm going to spend some time talking about this one because of how passionately I dislike this album. It's about an hour long, and there's nothing. It only gets 1 point because there were one or maybe two feature verses that were okay, but weren't song-saving. Not a single song worth returning. Very boring. I hated it, and I have not heard an album worse than it in my entire life, or mixtape, whatever the fuck it is. Next up, we have Blackballed by 6ix9ine, which hardly beat it. I guess I could go over the tiers a little bit. This is our complete dog shit tier, which is F. We changed up the tiers a little bit from last year. So we have complete dog shit, which I think you guys kind of get the gist. They're pretty self-explanatory. D-, awful. D, ass. D+, bad. C-, not it. C, mid. B, all right, B+, solid, A, good, A+, great, S, amazing, and S+, best albums of the year. Sorry I didn't disclose that beforehand, but those are our only two entries in our complete dog shit F tier, because nothing else is quite as terrible as those albums. So moving up into D- for awful, we have Net Spend with Badass Fucking Kid. There it is. Net Spend with Badass Fucking Kid. Similar appropriation of the already overdone and not usually done well Rage sound that Ian pulled off earlier in the year, which we're going to get to, but this is even worse than Ian. And that's kind of all I really have to say about it, because after that we have Ian's Goodbye Horses, which is right here. I'm finding these faster than I thought I would. Ian's Goodbye Horses, again, same case. It's just really uninspired. Why listen to Ian when you can listen to Yeet, if you get what I'm saying? So that's that. It's just not very good. Following that, we have another big shitter, Genre Sad Boy by MGK and Trippie Redd. I knew it was going to be bad when I saw it. I knew it was going to be bad because of the title. I knew that collab was going to be ass because MGK is not very good and Trippie Redd is hit or miss. It was bad. Really bad emo rap with some decent vocal performances from Trippie and a random hidden surprise feature from Jid, which is really unfortunate because Jid is like one of my goats. And seeing him on such a shitter of an album really hurt my soul. Just edging that out a little bit, we have Sexy Red with In Sexy We Trust. Let's see if I can find this one. Usually the scanning method is the way to go. It's kind of a lot of albums to skim through. There we go. In Sexy We Trust. I didn't have high expectations for this. It was better than Hood Hottest Princess by a pretty significant margin, in my opinion. Less offensive. Actually, I kind of love the song that Drake is on just because it's pretty funny, and him rapping over the BBL Drizzy beat is hilarious to me. So it wasn't terrible. Some of the songs were like fun bad, and some of them were fun enough to the point where they were even I could consider them good, but not much more than that. It's Sexy Red. What do you expect? It was not a very good album overall. Next up, we're going to be tackling some people that I don't get the hype behind. Rod Wave's Last Lap. Rod Wave has made the same song 80 times for the past 2 or 3 of his albums, maybe 5. I don't know how many albums he has, but all of them. has been him making the same song 20 times. And it's always a lot of songs. It's never short, and there never is anything that stands out among the track list. It's boring and it's basic. And the same can be said for somebody who I really also still don't get the hype behind, Huncho. He stole Quavo's nickname, which I already don't like because Quavo's just so much better than you. It's boring. And I don't really have much more to say than that. So after that, we have Autumn with... what the hell was this album called? What the hell? It was a sequel. It was a sequel to something. Solitary 2. I was going to say Solitaire. I was close, but I was wrong. Solitary 2 by Autumn. Similar thing. It's just it's a style I really haven't gotten the hype behind. It's really boring to me. And there's nothing interesting or unique that he's doing on it. And it gets really boring, and it is not fun to listen to. Next up, we have Huncho again with his little Before the Album EP that he released. I only put this above Thank God. Oh, I didn't even say the name of that album. Thank God was the name of the first Huncho album I put in there because it's shorter. I didn't have to sit through it as long, so it wasn't as miserable. That's literally it. It was pretty much as bad, but I put it above for that reason. Next up, we have Party Next Door with the most out-of-pocket cover of the year with Party Next Door 4. I guess Vultures 1 is a competitor for that as well. Yeah, it's just very uninspired R&B. There's just not anything interesting to it. Again, a lot of the lower tiers are just boring music that doesn't do anything unique or new or interesting and goes on for longer than it should, which is at all. But if it goes for over an hour, I'm going to hate it. I don't recall Party Next Door 4 being that long, but it was still a slog to get through just because of how boring and like samey the tracks were between like amongst each other. They were just similar and it fucking sucked. It was ass. Next up, topping off our D- tier for awful, we have Camila Cabello's CXOXO. It was just like she went into more of a hyper pop lane on some of these tracks, kind of, and like songs like Chanel No. 5, obnoxious. Most of the album was just obnoxious sounding, and I can respect trying to enter a new lane. Just I'm hoping that if you notice it doesn't pan out, she doesn't continue with that in the future. I liked the track that was just Drake, but she's not on that. And I also like I Love It, the single with Cardi, mostly because of Playboi Carti's part. But that song I do enjoy as well. So it's got a couple of things that I'm returning to, which is why it's higher up on this tier. Next up, we're moving up to D tier, which is for ass albums. And at the bottom of that, we have Ian's Valedictorian, which was released before Goodbye Horses. I dislike it for the same reasons, but there are a couple of songs that were released a little more passable. Like if I were in a car and someone were playing them on aux, I would judge them a little bit, but not as much, if you get what I'm saying. That's kind of all I have to say about that, because again, it's the same as Goodbye Horses. Next we have Glorilla's mixtape Ethang. I only kind of get the hype behind Glorilla. She's got some flows on her, like yeah, Glow I can acknowledge is a banger, but still not something I've plan to return to in my casual listening. But like if it comes on, I'd sing along. Yeah, Glow. Like that's just pretty fire. But outside of that, she struggles from a similar syndrome to someone like Moneybagg Yo, which we'll talk about later, where you're just kind of making pretty basic trap music and it's not anything going on, and a lot of your songs sound similar. And we'll get to that with Moneybagg Yo later because he did release an album, but I do think Glorilla just happens to do it a bit worse than him. Next up, we have Destroy Lonely with Love Lasts Forever. He went more of a trap lane than a rage rock influenced lane on If Looks Could Kill, which I appreciated because If Looks Could Kill was a miserable listen. It was obscenely long, like 26 tracks, I think, and it was well over an hour, like an hour 18 or something like that, and none of it was good. It was just ass attempts at throwing that rock sound that a lot of Opium members and that style of rage music have tried, and it doesn't pan out most of the time. This time he pivoted to trap music, and it was just boring. Like, it wasn't as miserable to listen to. It didn't hurt my ears, but it just didn't do anything interesting. So it was not a very good or enjoyable listen. Next up, we have Glorilla's full album release from this year, Glorious, which was a little bit better. It was marginally better. Still nothing that I think I'm returning to on that, but there were some features that I liked. Some of her performances were solid-ish, but overall, it struggled from the same stuff as Ethang, where it's just not exciting. There's nothing going on, and you're not taking the style that you're using over and over again to a different level like some people are capable of, so it's just not a very good experience to listen through. After that, we have the deluxe release for Chris Brown's 11:11. I didn't actually have not listened to the regular full album of 1111. When I rank deluxes, I'm just ranking them off of the new tracks that were added. And this just was a collection of, I don't recall how many, but over 10 new tracks, most of which were pretty boring R&B in the same vein as Party Next Door, but better than that because it's Chris Brown. He's better than Party Next Door. With one track, which was called, I think it was Freak. It was either Freaky or Freak, that featured Joyner Lucas, Lil Wayne, and T Grizzly, and all of them went in on it. They were rapping. It was good. That's what sparked the trade of diss tracks between him and Quavo, which Quavo ended up washing him in with Tender, and then Over Hoes and Bitches. Great diss track. But yeah, outside of that one track that I do think is a banger, the rest of it's just really boring. And after that, we have Eternal Take 2, tarnishing the name of Eternal Take, which I do think was a very good album by Uzi. So Lil Uzi Vert's Eternal Take 2 is a crazy situation, worse than Pink Tape in my opinion. Not a single song that I really enjoyed on here. Pretty much everything was a skip. There were a couple songs that were like, and the rest of it was like, wow, this is like actively like bad, and I dislike listening to this, and I do not want to hear this again. It hurts my ears. Uzi's fall off is tragic. He's got to get off the fucking nitrous or whatever the hell he's doing. It's rough, and it shows in his music. Pink Tape wasn't bad for those reasons, but was not good. The fall off for Uzi was not one that I was hoping would happen, but here we are. And it's crazy that it's losing to this next album, because this next album was not good by any means either. A Gift for the Streets by Kodak Black, which was released on Christmas, had like one track that I thought was actually surprisingly solid, and the rest of it, again, boring. Nothing going on there. That's kind of it. After that, we have King Hendrix with Megastar. It had a few okay tracks, but again, it's just a lot of basic, like, remaking a sound that somebody's already done and done it better. So you're not like tempting me to return to your music at all with that. Let's see if I can fucking find it in this. There we go. Megastar by King Hendrix. I'm surprised I'm remembering most of these. I only forgot the Autumn album so far, so I'm doing good. Next up, we have 21 Lil Harold, one of the worst rap names ever, with Sick of Myself. I got that one. I remember that one. Sick of Myself. I got it. All right, let's see if I can find it. So 21 Lil Harold, similar situation, just kind of basic trap music, basic rapping. But this album did have a song that featured Jid, and I believe it's called Sundown, and that song itself is actually pretty good, both mostly for Jid, but also 21 Lil Harold. Okay on there. And the song with like Quavo and G Herbo was kind of disappointing. Song with Big X The Plug, disappointing. Overall, it wasn't super long, so it didn't bother me too much, but it just wasn't very good. Topping off our D tier for ass, which is very fitting, we have Y2K by Ice Spice. It wasn't as bad as I was anticipating, not by any means, but it was definitely better than her last project that she released in 2023. But it didn't leave much. Like, you had a Travis feature, and that song was still ass somehow. Like, you shouldn't be having ass songs that have Travis Scott on them. And she managed that. Although the song with Central C did it first, I do actually like. That is the first Ice Spice song that I unironically do enjoy. So she gets points for that, for sure. Moving up to D+ for bad, we have Lucky with Gemini. So, again, it struggles from just, like, having a lot of tracks. It's long, and not a lot of them are super different. Not a lot of them are standouts. Nothing is super exciting about it. Outside of the fact that there are two tracks that I actually did enjoy quite a bit that I actively return to semi-frequently, Courtesy Of, and then the one with Yachty that I'm not remembering the name of. Was it Big Avell, or was that on the Homicide Gang album? Either way, there are some good songs on there, but mostly, again, boring listen. Now we got an anomaly. Vultures 2. I guess it's not an anomaly because we're going to get to Vultures 1 later as well. Vultures 2 by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign. Yen Dollar. Really bad. 12 of the 16 tracks were really bad. 3 of them were pretty good. And then 530, great song. Actually among my favorite songs of 2024. Maybe like top 50 probably. So yeah, Kanye is still very capable of making a good song. He's just not very capable of making a good album. 12 tracks on there were just hot ass. And then he had some heaters in there. So it was just a really hard listen to get through. Wasn't as good as the good tracks on Vultures 1, and there weren't as many, which I'll get to later. But Vultures 1 has its other gripes, which again, we'll get to when we get there. It was not nearly as bad as Vultures 1. I mean, Vultures 1 wasn't nearly as bad as Vultures 2. There we go. Next up, we have Play Cash Cobain by Cash Cobain. Surprisingly, I did enjoy a couple of tracks on here. Dunk Contest was an odd one because it was just grippy without the J. Cole feature. And I actually do like grippy. I think it's funny, and I do think it's catchy. I like the sound of it, despite the fact that it's some of Cole's worst writing ever. And by some of, I mean it's literally Cole's worst writing ever. But it's funny. I like his flows. I like the beat a lot. But Dunk Contest is just Cash Cobain's part, which is like, it's funny because of how ridiculous it is, but it's not very good. Slizzy Huncho Don, throwing Quavo and Don Toliver in there. That's a great track for an intro. And For Sure. For Sure is a good song. I mean, that's why he blew up off of it for a reason. I enjoy that song. Next up in our bad tier, we have F1 Trillion, Post Malone's country album. I had high hopes for this before the singles started coming out, and then I realized what it was going to be. It's just him making as basic of country music as he could, and it's not like he's doing it badly. He's doing it to the level that basic country music can be, and country's not among my favorite genres, and he doesn't do anything interesting with it, and he just kind of he makes a Morgan Wallen song and gets Morgan Wallen on it. He makes a song that Blake Shelton could be on, and he puts Blake Shelton on it. It just was not good. There was nothing good going on with it. It was just boring and basic. And speaking of boring, we have The Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift. This album was lengthy, and it had a second album, which I did also listen to, which we're going to get to in a minute. Every song on here had a very, very same-ish vibe, and it was very, very boring, except for the intro track Fortnite with Post Malone, actually, which I do enjoy quite a bit, and I actually return to. That is actually a pretty good song. The rest of it is incredibly boring, nothing exciting. It's only getting points to be in this tier because her songwriting is actually quite creative. Her storytelling is good, but, like, I have to go into Genius to figure out what's going on here because I missed the past 18 seasons of Taylor Swift lore. So, like, if it takes that for me to be able to appreciate what you're doing, that's kind of crazy, but I do still appreciate that amount of her stuff, but it's just not stuff that's fun to listen to. So, yeah. After that, we're going to Babytron with Case Dismissed. Not great. Grab Yo Skates is a good song. Rest of it's just kind of like, it's very Babytron, which isn't bad, like on its own, but he just is making like a par for the course Babytron song like 10 times, and it's just, there's nothing going on. It's just like, I've heard him make this song before, so nothing exciting there. Now we're back to Taylor Swift with The Tortured Poets Department, The Anthology. This only gets a little bit of extra credit because the songs are more different, and that's kind of it. There's still nothing really good on here, but it wasn't as difficult to get through. Jack Antonoff did not do a good job on the production on The Tortured Poets Department. He just made the same song a lot of times. It's crazy because of how much he did for Kendrick on like 616 in LA, Watch the Party Die, pretty much all of GNX. He cooked on that. He should stick to hip hop because he's not doing a good job with Taylor. But yeah, that's it for that. Let's move on to Megan Thee Stallion's Megan. There were a couple of pretty good songs on here, but again, you're making a lot of just samey rap music. Nothing exciting going on there. Next up, we got a tragic fall off with Ghostface Killah's Set the Tone, Guns and Roses. Tragically not very good album. Some really shit songs on here. Some bangers, though. Like the song with Nas, Scar Tissue, I think it was called. Pretty good. Song with Method Man, I enjoyed. But yeah, overall, I don't know what he was trying to do on here, but he was not cooking anything good. Next up, we got Sleepy Hollow, a tragic fall off with Read This When You Wake Up, I believe is what the title of this is. Yeah. Definitely his weakest album to date. He's been on a steady decline since his first project, Don't Sleep. Sleepy for President was good. Still Sleep was good as well. And even Boy Meets World was pretty good, but not as much as Don't Sleep. And this is just not. It's not. There's a few songs that are okay that I come back to sometimes, and that's it. Everything else is just like, why would I come back to this? You've made this song before on a previous album and it was better. Someone else has made this song before and it was better. It's just boring to get through. Again, boring is a big word for the lower half of this list. Moving on, we have Babyface Ray with The Kid That Did. Pretty much the exact same case as this Sleepy Hollow album, except the highlights on here are higher. Most notably, one of the lead singles, Shy Kid. Really like that song. And there's no songs on the Sleepy Hollow album that I enjoyed to that degree. Moving on, we got Slimy Air 2 by Young Nudie, produced by Pierre Bourne. This was tragic. That's kind of all I have to say about it. We're actually going to move on to my other scene so we can there we go. So we can actually see things. There we go. Yeah, it's a similar situation. There were just more highlights on here than the past two albums, so it was a bit better. Like there were some decent songs sprinkled throughout as opposed to like a couple. And it wasn't as long as like the Sleepy Hollow album, so yeah, that's where that's landing for me. Next up, we have One of One by Gunna. Another rough one to get through just because of the form Gunna used to be in as opposed to the form that he's in now. It's just really boring. He knows how to make a good song. It's similar to Kanye, but to a very different degree for many reasons. Like Hakuna Matata, WhatsApp, is it On One Tonight? Is that one of the songs? I don't know if I just made that up. But there are a few pretty good songs on here. Prod of Them is another one, the one with Offset. But everything else is just boring. It's just boring. It's something that's been made before. And that's all I have to say. Now we're finally talking about Moneybagg Yo with Speak Now. It's another similar case. He's just making the same song a lot, except he has a few songs on there that hit really fucking hard that I really do like. So the songs sprinkled throughout, as opposed to just being okay or just being good, they're actually quite good, if you get what I'm getting at. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. Next up, we got Flo Milli with Fine Host Day. Similar situation. A lot of not great tracks, but a lot of the tracks that I'm skipping aren't terrible. They're just not much, if you get what I'm getting at. And there are a few highlights. Never Lose Me, the other version of Never Lose Me with SZA and Cardi B. Tell Me What You Want From Me, Edible with Gunna. There's some good songs on there. Following that, we have Insano Nitro Mega, which was a follow-up to Insano, which we're going to get to later. Features Cuddy's probably worst song to date, Willis. However, it does feature a song with Push that is pretty good, Pusha T, a song with Lil Boat that is pretty good, and Human Made the intro, which is very good. I had actually put above most of the Insano track list, but Insano's a little bit of a more consistent listen, which we'll get to later, because the rest of this is pretty buns. Now we're finally getting to Vultures 1. So it's quite a bit better than Vultures 2. There's a couple more tracks that I actually like than Vultures 2. And outside of 530, the tracks that I do like, I like more than the ones that I like on Vultures 2. And I think some of the skips aren't as egregious, except for the ones that are that he says anti-Semitic and Nazi shit, because what the fuck? In the music is crazy. Separate the art from the artist. Those motherfuckers quaking in their boots when they listen to that fucking album. Not very good. And that's going to top off our D+ tier for bad. And now we're moving up to C-, which is, this shit is not it. It's just not it. At the bottom of that, we have Bossman D-Lo's D-Lo Curry. Again, similar situation. Basic trap music. Not a lot going on. Few songs that hit pretty hard. That's kind of it. Above that, we have Homicide Gang's I-5, U-5, We-5. Not as good as their album last year, Fifth Amendment. At least not off the dome from what I remember. I remember liking quite a few tracks on Fifth Amendment. This, I only liked maybe 2, maybe 3. But the ones that I liked, I did like quite a bit. Like Double Omega was a pretty enjoyable track. I like that one quite a bit. But everything else is just like why I didn't like Homicide Gang going into Fifth Amendment last year. It's just like, I don't know. I something about that style just tends to fall through for me. I just think they do it correctly very rarely. But when it pans out well, and it becomes a song that I actually do enjoy a decent amount. So I can't complain too much there. Anyway, moving on. We have Big Hit, Hit Boy, and The Alchemist with Black and Whites. I think this had potential to be a lot better than it was, and it didn't come through the way I was hoping. So the production's pretty consistently solid throughout. Obviously, you got Hit Boy and The Alchemist on it. Big Hit's raps are hit or miss. Very, very hit or miss. More miss than hit. There's only a few tracks that I think are worth returning to on here, and everything else is just kind of like something about it falls flat, and I'm just like wanting something better, and you're not getting that a whole lot on this album. Just above that, we have another rough fall off that has happened over the course of the years with Polo G, with Hood Poet. a steady decline and a consistent one. Pretty much every album is worse than the last since The GOAT. The GOAT's great. Don't get me wrong. I love that album. Hall of Fame, not it. This, not it. It was boring. All the things that he gets hate for, just like making the same song, what I've been talking about with a lot of these other artists, is what he's fallen into. And there were very few tracks that were worth returning to. One of them was actually a Glorilla feature, surprisingly. And that one was actually a decent track. Next up, we got Bossman D-Lo's next installment, which was released previously to D-Lo Curry, the mixtape Mr. Beat the Road. Pretty much the same situation, but on average, the tracks were just better. So that's really all I have to say about that. Next up, we got A Boogie with the Hoodie with Better Off Alone. Yet another really steady decline. Each album worse than the last. It's just, it gets boring. A Boogie has not made much interesting music in a while since like Artist 2.0, especially since like Hoodie Season. It's been rough to watch because I really did like a lot of his stuff from like 2016 to 2020. But nowadays, it's just like, I'm not looking forward to an A Boogie release anytime soon. We're coming up with a fat, hot take. Coming from a rap fan, so you guys are going to have to take it with a grain of salt, I guess. Charlie XCX's Brat. I don't love EDM. I don't love electronic music in many subgenres. Some I do like, but not all of them, not most of them. I don't like EDM very much. I don't like dance pop a lot as a genre. So for that, considering that, I don't think this was a terrible attempt at that. I thought a couple of songs were enjoyable, like Apple, I think is a good song, but not something I'm returning to. 365, I enjoyed a decent amount, but I prefer the cover that was made by Joey Valance and Bray, which we're going to talk about their album much later in the video, because I actually did enjoy that, but again, we'll get to that later. So there's not much worth returning to for me here. I get the hype for people who are fans of the genre, but I don't get the hype to the level where people are giving it like 10 out of 10s. That's a little crazy to me. I could get being like a fan of the genre being like, oh, this is an 8. That I can understand, but like some critics putting this on par with like Kendrick Lamar's is I don't know, it's beyond me. I don't get that level of appeal. I get the appeal if you're a fan of the genre, but that's kind of the extent of it for me. Past that, we're going to Skywater's project #GG. It was okay. It had a few good songs and a lot of songs I didn't like very much. A couple songs that had those Jersey style drums, the kicks and 808s, which I never like and only work 0.001% of the time for me when I hear them. Not a fan. And there were a few tracks that used that. Unique style, I'll give Skywater that, but it didn't pan out on a lot of tracks. But it did on a few, and I do return to some of them. So yeah. Next up, we have Somebody with Good Intentions, but not the best execution. 96 Miles from Bethlehem by Belly, which is meant to be like kind of talking about the Palestine-Israel conflict while it was happening. And I think I appreciate on like a one listen type thing, but nothing here worth coming back to. Like, ideally, if you really want people to dwell on these issues, you should try to convey your messages in ways musically that people are going to want to come back to and listen to again, so it's reinforced. And he doesn't really do that on here. So I'm giving him credit for the message, and the raps aren't bad, but musically and stylistically, it's just something that you're going to listen to once, be like, I like that message, and you're never going to want to come back to, if you get what I'm saying. Topping off our C- tier for albums that are just not it, we have Tierra Whack's Worldwide Whack. I appreciate a lot of what she does on here. It's very unique. It's very her own style, which is cool. But the overt quirkiness of what's going on in a lot of the tracks makes it not something that I would really want to come back to leisurely. But as an album listen, it wasn't terrible. And there are some tracks that I really like 27 Club. Really, really, really strong track. And a couple of the more fun tracks and quirky tracks I did kind of enjoy to a degree where I was like, maybe I could spin this back a couple times. But most of it was just a little too much for me in that vein, if you get what I'm getting at. All right, moving on to our mid tier. C tier for mid. At the bottom of this, we have The Alchemist and Oh No in their collaborative Gangrene with Heads I Win, Tails You Lose. Production's pretty solid throughout the whole thing, which is expected from a producer duo like that. But again, they're producers. they're producers before they're rappers, and it shows on a project like this, which I don't want to fault them too much for, because again, they are producers before they're rappers, but their raps are inconsistent and more miss than hit. There's a few tracks that are pretty good, and a lot of tracks that are just like lacking in rapping. And even when the flows are on point and the bars are on point, at times there are some tracks where the production actually falls off, which sucks, because it's a lot less frequent that we get the raps being the standout good part of the song. But if you don't have both of them, it doesn't really work. Moving on, we have New World Depression by Suicide Boys. First time I listened to these guys, I'd heard a couple of songs and not loved their style. I'm still not super liking it, but it is kind of an acquired taste thing. After spinning some of the songs a few times, I kind of got the appeal, at least. But even then, there were maybe 4 songs that I think I deemed worth returning to. The rest of it, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't very good, if you get what I'm getting at. Moving on, right above that, in similar vein, we have Rich the Kid. Not stylistically, just quality-wise. Rich the Kid's Life's a Gamble. Pretty big majority of these tracks are just kind of nothing new. And then there's a okay handful of maybe 5-ish tracks that are actually pretty good. Sometimes because of features like Chief Keef or Offset, or I think Quavo is on one of them, or Bia, or I'm blanking on other ones. But yeah, and even some of the solo tracks, pretty decent songs. There's a handful of them, but a lot of it's just like eh. It's not bad, but it's just eh. And having a lot of eh makes your album not very enjoyable as a whole. Moving up, we have Tyla's self-titled project, her debut. There wasn't anything really super bad on here, but it isn't the most unique style of pop music. But like Water, the remix of Water with Travis Scott, yeah, there's a few standouts. The one with Gunna, that I'm forgetting the name of, Jump. That song is good as well. And there's a couple other ones that I'm forgetting the names of, but overall, most of it is just like okay pop music, and that's kind of it. Past this, we have Chupacabra, which is Jason Martin and DJ Quick's collaborative effort, which has great production on a good handful of the tracks, and it's never really bad, the production, but performance-wise, with rappers and features, it falls flat in a lot of ways at a lot of times, but not in a way where like this song is ass. Just a lot of the songs were just pretty mediocre. The outro was good. One of the leading singles, Gerbs and Youngs, which has Larry June on it. Beautiful production, good performance from Larry June. Among some of my favorite tracks, again, probably somewhere in that top 50 of 2024. So it wasn't terrible, but again, not a lot of stuff that I'm coming back to off there. Next up, we have Mudrigo with Rated M. This is his first actual project that he's released. I was a little disappointed because I did enjoy a lot of his singles that came out leading up to this. Most of his singles that came out leading up to this. And none of the tracks really get to that same level of quality as like a song like Tears, which was released years prior. But there are still a handful of good tracks. I think it's a total of 6 actual tracks, and half of them were pretty good, half of them were eh. But I do still see a lot of potential and stuff that he could be releasing in the future. So a full album in the future, I'm hoping to see from him, because I think it could still be pretty fucking good. Next up, we have The Party Never Ends by Juice WRLD. Not as bad as I was anticipating. I really thought it was going to be dog shit, but it was just kind of mid. The song, not too many songs that I liked, but the songs that I didn't like were just like, just not unexciting, not necessarily bad. And the handful of tracks that I liked a pretty decent amount. So that's all I really have to say about that. I was surprised pleasantly, I guess you could say, by it being mid, because I was expecting it to be pretty shit, and it was not as shit as I was anticipating. Next up, we have Lotto with Sugar Honey Iced Tea. There it is. Another pleasant surprise. I was not expecting this to be a very interesting or very good album, and it wasn't super interesting or super good, but there were a good handful of like 7 or 8 maybe tracks that I did enjoy a decent amount. A lot of her more melodic flows were really fun. Her rapping on the outro track was really good. And the rest of it, again, there wasn't a lot of bad music, just some like mediocre stuff here and there. So it's getting a mid ranking for that. Now, right above that, this is actually where we move past the albums that are rated at exactly a 5. So those were like perfectly mid. But next up, we have Jay Critch's Humble Giant, one of the worst album covers of 2024. It's such a goofy album cover. I like this more upon my second listen. Only a few, maybe 3 or 4 tracks that I'm coming back to that I enjoy actually a lot. But again, it's another situation where the rest of them aren't really bad. It's just not something I would consider spinning back because it's not super good. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that. Next up, we have Four Bats with You Made Me a Star, which was surprisingly not as bad overall as I was anticipating. Although the leading tracks, acts 1 through 3, are among the best on the album, so there wasn't anything super new, or at least out of the new stuff, there wasn't anything standing out as opposed to those. It was still decent, and there were a few good tracks. And nothing really terrible, just some cringe writing at times, and that's really about it. And actually, I think I gave this the same exact rating. We have Bryson Tiller's self-titled project, which again, similar stuff, but a little bit better, just very slightly better, very, very, very slightly better. Some skips that were like or cringe, and then some pretty freaking good tracks. It just sucks that he put Whatever She Wants as a bonus track on here, not really counting it as part of the album, because that song is great and it really does wash the rest of the track list on its own. So that was an odd decision by him. So I not letting Whatever She Wants count towards my rating on this album. And I would if he didn't count it as a bonus track, but he did. So that was an odd decision by him, but okay. Next up, surprisingly not terrible. Joyner Lucas is Not Now I'm Busy. A decent handful of pretty fucking good tracks, although the bars are never super, some of them are creative and some of them are good wordplay, but they're never like super like, oh my god, on a lot of tracks. His flow is what really stands out on this album, and the production's inconsistent, but more hits than misses production wise. His flows are just really good on a lot of these songs, and yeah, that's kind of all I have to say. He flows really well, and it produces a pretty good album. Well, not pretty good, a pretty good set of 7 or 8 tracks, where the other ones are just kind of boring. He also has a Jelly Roll feature on here. Get Jelly Roll out of rap music, please. I can't stand Jelly Roll. I bet he's a great guy. He seems like a very nice guy. Can't stand his music, can't stand his voice, and I need to get it out of my rap music right the fuck now. Moving on. Another surprise that it wasn't too bad. We have Tommy Richmond's Coyote. Yeah, there wasn't anything to dislike a lot about this. Like, the tracks I didn't like were kind of mediocre, but they weren't bad. And the tracks that I did like were surprisingly good, and I do respect him for not putting his big hits, Devil's Lie and $1 Million Baby, among the track list. They wouldn't have fit in the first place, so it makes sense, but also I respect that decision just out of, like, the fact that that probably would have drawn more people to the album. So it was all right. It was all right. Next up, we have a pretty disappointing project, actually. Lil Yachty and James Blake's Bad cameo. Not disappointing because it was bad, disappointing because it had the potential to be very good, and it did not meet that really at all. After something like Let's Start Here, if I see Yachty going into that kind of lane, I have high expectations, and not a single track on here could hold a candle to even the weakest track on Let's Start Here. That being said, about half of them were still good. They just weren't the same kind of good. The songs were either good and nothing more than that, or mediocre. So that's why it's falling where it's falling. After that, we have Conductor Williams, Conductor, We Have a Problem, Part 3. Now, Conductor Williams, when he's making stuff for other people, he's been my favorite producer of like the decade so far. I've loved what he's done on a lot of stuff. And there's actually a specific example that I'm going to get to later in the video. Yeah, Conductor Williams is great. He's in a good bag a lot of the time. I love his stuff. Here, the production isn't really what falls short. I think it's just because in general, he's a smaller artist. He's not getting super big names featured on his stuff. Like, the best feature on here was Damo Genesis. Don't get me wrong, I like Damo Genesis, but he just doesn't have the means to get, like, some of the people that he's working with on here, like a West Side Gun, or, like, God forbid he gets Drake on there. I don't want to see him associating with Drake again, though. We don't like Drake as a person in these parts. The music is a separate thing, but Drake as a person, no. But yeah, it was disappointing because considering how much I like his production, but a lot of the tracks fell short. Similar situation to the previous one. About half of them were something that was worth returning to. The other half were pretty mediocre. Next up, we have Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre's Missionary, sequel to Doggy Style. Very few songs worth returning to on here, but the ones that are worth returning to are quite good. Everything else is just like hang up the gloves, kind of. Don't actually, though, because, I mean, we love Snoop. We love Dre. And, yeah, it's just like, okay, that's how I feel when I leave that album. Okay. After that, we have Conductor Williams again in his collaborative effort with Boldy James, Across the Tracks. A little bit better than Conductor We Have a Problem Part 3, just because it's a little more consistent. The production is more consistently better on here from Conductor Williams himself. And I think Boldy James does a better job than a lot of the people who are featured on Conductor We Have a Problem Part 3. And yeah, there's a few more tracks percentage-wise that I enjoyed on here. And I don't think the misses were as big of misses on Across the Tracks as on the previous Conductor Williams album. That's going to be topping off our mid-tier. So we're going to get to things that I would say are rated somewhat positively, if you get what I'm saying. Some of the ones in the mid-tier are technically positive, just a little bit over 5. But these are ones that are rated even more positively. So at the bottom of our all right tier for B, we have Big Sean's Better Me Than You. It's another hit or miss situation where there's not too many songs that are just straight up bad, and there's a good handful of songs that are pretty good. Like, again, a bonus track, the one with the Alchemist at the end is very good, but again, I can't really count that if it's a bonus. Precision, the lead single, very good song. I really do like that song. It's probably the best song on the album. And there are a few other songs, again, none super memorable, but still pretty good, mixed in with some mid shit here and there. Following that, we have a kind of similar situation with Bando Stone in the New World by Childish Gambino. Pretty disappointing how hit or miss this is. This is like the epitome of hit or miss albums, because there are some songs that are just not it really at all, and some songs that are great, like Cruisin' with Yeet, or Lithonia, which is the best song on the album. Lithonia is an amazing song. It's a mix of really, really, really strong songs and really, really mediocre and not good songs. So it's kind of conflicting how I want to review it, because after the album being out for a while, I'm only listening to the songs that I like. It's changing my viewpoint a little bit. I had to go back and realize how many of those songs are not that good. Next up, we have 9 by Kenny Mason. Really short project, only 9 tracks, hence the title. Kenny Mason has potential. I see a lot of potential in like full-length album releases in the future from this guy. I really like some of the stuff he's done. I like a lot of features that he's been on. A song I came across recently called Serial. I believe it's him, IDK, and Jid. That song's great, and he probably has the best verse on there, to be honest. There are a few misses here. Very versatile. It's very all over the place stylistically, which I don't mind. But like, he's in a lot of different bags, and a lot of them do pan out in a decent enough way where I could see him developing a lot of different sounds, which is always good for an artist. So I see potential, but he's not quite there yet. After that, we have Matt Champion's Mika's Laundry, which is not a rap album, but rap adjacent-ish. It was okay. It was okay. I didn't hate it. None of the songs were like straight up bad. And some of them were pretty good, but there's nothing that I'm like, oh my god, this is phenomenal. But there are some songs where I'm like, oh, that is surprisingly very good, and I will come back to this. And that's kind of the whole story for that album. Next up, we have the Blues Brothers, T-Pain and Young Cash, with their self-titled project, The Blues Brothers. If I could find it, that would be splendid. All right, there it is. It's fun. That's really all I have to say about it. It's a fun album. About half of the tracks are pretty good. The other half are but it's fun. It's very fun. The rapping and the singing, very T-Pain-esque. I'm a big fan of T-Pain, both as a person, an artist, and a streamer. Shout out to T-Pain. Very underrated artist, just all-time consideration and influence. Love T-Pain. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. Next up, we have Action Bronson with Johann Sebastian Baklava the Doctor. I say it like that because I think he said it like that on one of the songs, because it's like Bach, and then he continues it to baklava. So I think he said baklava. I think that's how I pronounce it. Whatever. It's another fun project. More hits than misses. Ridiculous bars like Mel Gibson gave me COVID at One Fighter versus Poirier 3, where he broke his leg. The specificity in Action Bronson bars. There's a reason the Accidental Bronson account on Twitter exists. He's hilarious, funny bars, but there's nothing exceptional on here. And that's all I really have to say about that. Moving on, we have Kenny Mason's other project that released this year, which I was almost disappointed with, not because of its quality, just because of its existence. And I'll elaborate once I locate it. It's one of those black and white ones. There's a lot of them. There we go. Angel Eyes is the name of it, by the way. He didn't... I feel like I get, like, trying to just drop a lot of stuff when you're smaller. 100%. I feel like if he gives himself more time to work on a project and develop a little bit more, he will get to the place that I was talking about with his potential that I saw on 9. I see it still on Angel Eyes, but similarly, he's not there yet. It's a bit better, but... And he didn't go back into a bag like he was on the outro track on 9, Luminous. I want him in that bag again because that was the best track on 9, and that is the best track between those two projects. So I hope he does still maintain some versatility because Angel Eyes was a bit less versatile than 9, but he had that sound at least slightly more developed and honed in, and it was a little bit better overall. Hood Rat being the best track on there, if anybody was wondering, just because I really, really, really think you should listen to that song. It's very good. Moving on, we got Larry June with an album whose name I'm blanking on, actually. Let's see. It is called Doing It For Me by Larry June. It was okay. That's kind of all there is to it. Good vibes, good production, as is usual on a Larry June album. There's usually pretty fucking solid production. One of the lead singles, Imported Couches, still one of my favorite songs on there. Yeah, that's kind of all I got to say about it. It's pretty good. Not pretty good. It's decent and has some pretty good tracks. Dropping another hot take real quick. We have The Auditorium Volume 1 by Common and Pete Rock. This got a lot of praise, and I'm going to say it. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. There were a handful of songs that Common was really going in, and it was really good. And Pete Rock's production was pretty consistently solid, except for that All Falls Down sample was pretty atrocious in my opinion. But I feel like a lot of the songs are not jumping at you. There's nothing super exciting about them outside of the small handful that I was talking about before. I think it's been very overrated by critics in my opinion. It's not bad, but it's nothing exceptional. And it's not something I want to come back to. It's long. It's over an hour. So, like, it's over an hour of most of the songs not being something I deem worthy of re-listening to. So, it's just, I'm not coming out of that album feeling fulfilled, but it does help that a lot of the good tracks are on the tail end. So, that helps in my overall feelings when I'm finished, but still. Next up, we have another Mr. Falloff himself, Marshall Mathers, Eminem. This is another situation of somebody who really does know how to make a good song still, but really is not in a mode where they're making good albums anymore. The Death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grace, is just not... It's not the Eminem that we want. I will say, it is considerably better than Kamikaze, considerably better than Music to Be Murdered By, and leagues better than Revival. But it just has a lot of stuff not worth coming back to. I like the stuff where he alters his voice to sound like his old self. I think that's a very cool concept. At first I was iffy because like the AI stuff, but for the narrative of the album and the way it comes through, pretty cool. It's a very cool concept for an album. It's actually a very cool concept for an album, him battling with his older self. I really like that, but it just doesn't pan out in a way that's interesting, mostly because of situations like songs where he's in his old ways, but like not self-aware enough about it, where it'll just sound like, oh, does he actually believe this? Like where he's just, one of the bars is him going, pronouns. Like it's obviously like he doesn't feel that way, and that's like an exaggeration of the offensive self he used to be, but like that's the kind of song that like Tom McDonald is going to hear and be like, oh yeah, this shit's fire, if you get what I'm saying. So although it's not like him actually meaning those things, I'm not going to bump a song where that's a bar in it, if you get what I'm saying. It's good for the continuity throughout the album, but as an individual song, it's not standing on its own. And the few good songs are good, but it is kind of crazy that Eminem is dropping an album where the biggest highlight isn't even an Eminem verse, it's a JID verse that came out of nowhere. That verse was amazing. Although Eminem's verse on that song was also quite good. I will give Eminem credit there. But Death of Slim Shady, it was all right. It was all right. I was pleasantly surprised to be able to give Eminem a slightly positive rating. That's what I'll say. Now we're finally talking about Insano, the original release. Although the biggest highlight on Insano Nitro Mega being Human Made does kind of wash most of Insano. Insano is way more consistent and has very few misses relative. And yeah, there's just a lot of pretty good songs on here, but not too many songs that are more than pretty good. So that's kind of how I feel about Insano. It's rough seeing Kid Cudi in this mode, though, because it's still not great, considering that we're in the same decade that he released Man on the Moon 3, which was a very strong album, in my opinion. It kind of hurts to see Insano be so underwhelming, and Insano Nitro Mega even more so. That's going to top off our all right tier. So now we're moving into our solid tier. So these are albums that are like, they got something to them, if you get what I'm saying. They really like have something going for them. So this is another hot take. I enjoyed a little bit this DaBaby mixtape. How the fuck is this a mixtape? I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't as atrocious as some of the stuff that he had released in the past year or two, but still not really on the level of the freestyles that he puts out here and there. If he just freestyled a bunch and put it on an album, it would be really good. But there's maybe one miss on this mixtape, in my opinion. None of the songs that I enjoy are exceptional, of course. They're just pretty good, which is why it's only in B+ tier for solid. But it's giving me hope that a comeback is possible for the album that this mixtape is leading up to. Because he hasn't been able to capture that energy that we saw on like Baby on Baby, Blame It on Baby, and Kirk. We haven't seen him in that mode in a while, outside of when he hops on a freestyle and absolutely bodies it, because he's one of the best freestyles doing it right now. But it was a solid project, and I was very happy to see that it wasn't ass. Moving on, this might be a hot take. I did see this getting some pretty high praise. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it a decent amount. We have Saw Baby's Saheem. This is my first time listening to his stuff. And it was all right. His influences are very clear. Gunna and Cardi came through a lot on some of these tracks, but he did do it a lot better than Gunna's done it recently. And Cardi hasn't done anything recently. So he uses his influences, but takes it together in a way that is his own sound still, which I appreciate. And he has a very unique voice, which helps as well. Overall, it was solid. I enjoyed it, but nothing blew me out of the water, if you get what I'm saying. But there are most of these tracks are tracks that I will come back to occasionally and vibe with and bump in the car, shit like that. Next up, we have Future's mixtape Pluto. A couple of shitty shitters, but mostly good tracks. Good tracks that are no more than just good. And a few big highlights, like Ski. Pluto Ski is hilarious, so I like that quite a bit. But Ski and South of France, Surfing a Tsunami, those three songs, great. I love those songs. I'm only really bumping the South of France remix now because Travis is on it, and why not add to that, because that song is originally very, very, very short, under 2 minutes. But it's still on this album, and it's still good before the remix came out and after, but the remix is just better. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, there's nothing super crazy to it. It's got some good songs, similar to Saheem, but it's Future, and he's got some big bangers mixed in, which is why I'm putting it above. Next up, we have Ski Mask the Slump God's 11th Dimension. He's in a lot of different bags on here. Very big variety of styles, which I appreciate on an album. Keeps it from getting boring, especially when it's under 50 minutes in length like this one is, which was nice. The lead single, Shibuya, I did not like at all at first, and it really grew on me. I actually kind of like it quite a bit. It's a very interesting style for someone like Ski Mask. I think it was just kind of whiplash from what I was anticipating from him and how different it was. But there are plenty of songs with him still in his regular flow and mode, like Earwax, and the song with Juice WRLD was very good as well. Yeah, it's kind of a similar situation to Future, to mixtape Pluto, but overall, on average, the tracks are just a bit better. And we're going to move past that with Killer Mike's Michael and the Mighty Midnight Revival, Songs for Sinners and Saints. It's a mouthful. A little over half of these tracks are pretty good. Two of them, however, are remixing tracks that were on Michael, which I praised highly. So I didn't count that too much towards how good this album was, because he just took some really good tracks from Michael and put them together on Slummer for Junkies, with Slummer and Something for Junkies. But outside of that, there's also Still Talking That Shit, which is a remix of Talking That Shit. Killer Mike has a new verse, and Project Pat and Key Glock hop on, which is pretty hype. And yeah, the first handful of tracks are pretty powerful, pretty strong. And then the middle section, they're all right. So it's kind of just like a hit or miss situation, but the misses aren't big misses and the hits are pretty, like, decently big hits. So that's why it's fallen into the solid tier. And that's why it's above the Ski Mask album. It's a little bit stronger on average. Next up, we have CJ Fly of the Pro Era Crew with Baited. There's only one song I didn't love on here, and his rapping is just pretty on point throughout the whole thing. The production is consistently, surprisingly pretty good, considering how relatively small of an artist CJ Fly is. But yeah, it was just enjoyable raps, pretty refreshing, short listen, not much more to it. Moving past that, we have Lil Tecca's Plan A. This was a pleasant surprise to me, because I hadn't enjoyed a Tecca release really ever. At least not a full album, and a pretty vast majority of tracks on here are pretty fucking good. A few shitty misses, a few not as shitty misses, but mostly pretty freaking good tracks. And right above him, we're going to be putting another Pro Era fella with Nick Caution's Yellow Tape Road. Similarly to CJ Fly, his rapping is just kind of on point, which again, wow. You guys did not hear that. You expect from somebody who is a part of the Pro Era Crew. Where the hell is this fucking album? There it is. Jesus Christ. And I think he does a bit better than CJ Fly did overall. Emotional Trauma is a great track. The song right before it that I'm not remembering the name of, also very good. There's only one miss on here as well, similar to Baited, but it is, I think, a track or two longer than the CJ Fly project was. Yeah, I think he's just more on top of his shit with his flows and with his bars than CJ Fly was. So he's getting a bit more credit than that. And percentage-wise, a lot more enjoyable tracks than Plan A, because there was only one skip out of, I think, 10. And the one skip wasn't terrible. So yeah, Yellow Tape Road, it was a solid project. Moving on, it's gonna be hot take time, it seems. We got Beyonce's Cowboy Carter, Beyonce's country album. Not super country. She definitely did a much better job than Post Malone did. Just a lot of stuff stylistically that I don't want to come into. The experimentation is awesome, the way she fucks with genre, just as a concept. I really do appreciate that. But only a couple of tracks on here that I plan on coming back to, and the rest of them aren't bad. And that's not why, that quality isn't why it's coming into the solid tier. It's just that the rest of them quality-wise are pretty consistently on the more I don't love this side, and it's incredibly long. It's 27 tracks, I think, something like that. It's incredibly, incredibly long. It's an hour, 18 minutes. And if you're giving me stuff that's just not constant quality, an hour and 18 minutes is just too long for an album like that. If you want an hour and 18 minutes, look at To Pimp a Butterfly. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same length. To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. You gotta keep giving me something, and I don't think I'm getting that from Cowboy Carter. Again, not bad by any means. I enjoyed the album, and the two tracks that I keep coming back to, Spaghetti and fucking Daughter, best track on that thing, by the way. Awesome. Also, Texas Hold'em, super overrated. One of my least favorite tracks on the album. I don't know why some of the other ones aren't bigger than it. I think Texas Hold'em is specifically annoying. Anyway, moving on. We got T Grizzly with I don't know why I said that so weird. With Post Traumatic. This is just a collection of mostly pretty good songs. That's kind of it. Mostly pretty good songs. Robbery 7 and Robbery 8. Awesome. Love the Robbery series. Those songs are so peak. And the rest of it is just pretty good. Not too many misses. A lot of pretty good music. And yeah, I was not disappointed to get this from T Grizzly. I didn't love it, at least from my memory, I didn't love it as much as his previous album from 2023, T's Coney Island. But it was still solid. Right above that, we got All Is Yellow, the Lyrical Lemonade album, where he curated a bunch of artists together. I think he did a good job, Cole Bennett. I think he did a generally good job. There are a few misses on here. A lot of crazy mismatches of people, like having Jid, Sheck West, and Ski Mask on the intro. That was awesome. First Night, one of, if not the best track on there. You got Juicy J. You got Tizo on that intro. Holy shit. Denzel went crazy. Lot of really good moments on here. Jack Harlow and Stop Giving Me Advice, another really good moment on the album. Yeah, there's just a lot of memorable moments on here that are pretty good, but it's all over the place and doesn't pan out great on every track. So that's why it's getting this rating. The next two albums are similar, but to a greater extent. First off, we have Freddie Gibbs with You Only Die Once. Kind of disappointed, not super disappointed. This struggles from hit or miss syndrome like a lot of other albums that have been below it, but to a crazy extent, where the misses are quite boring, but the hits are very, very good. And it's about a 50-50 between hits and misses for me. I think maybe one more hit than miss. But the hits are so strong that I had to put it pretty high in this tier. Similarly, this applies to Ab-Soul's Soul Burger, dedicated to his brother Doe Burger, who passed away. Rest in peace. Some pretty boring misses on here. Some decent tracks, unlike the Freddie Gibbs project. Some that are a little bit in between. And a couple of absolute fucking heaters. Squeeze First 2, and especially 9 Mile, the intro, are some of my favorite tracks of the year. But they are like the sole big standouts of this album. A lot of the heavy lifting of the album is done by those two tracks, although there's still a few other ones that I enjoyed, not to nearly as much of a degree as 9 Mile and Squeeze First 2. Love those songs, though. Those songs are phenomenal, but I can't let them push the album that high on their own, if you get what I'm getting at. Next up, we have Mustard's Faith of a Mustard Seed. Not too many misses on here, but most of the good songs were not super exciting. No huge highlights. No big misses, but no huge highlights outside of the outro, which is actually just Mustard, even like vocally just Mustard, which is pretty cool that he managed to make the best song without having a feature there. And Parking Lot with Travis Scott is a very fun track as well. Those are the two biggest standouts. A lot of the other songs are still good and worth like spinning back, but nothing exceptional. So, you know, can't give it too much credit there. Next up, we have Chef G's Proud of Myself. Only like 4 misses on here, and 10 tracks that I enjoyed quite a bit. Some a lot more than others, don't get me wrong. Not super consistent on the quality, but also not bad on the quality. Chef G has, for the past couple of years, been pretty consistently a better album artist than Sleepy. I've always thought I liked Sleepy more, but I'm thinking not. I'm comparing them directly for those of you who don't know because they are very close collaborators. I think it's just that when they are on a song together, Chef really brings the best out in Sleepy, and Sleepy tends to do better than Chef on songs where they're together. But outside of that, I think Chef might just be better. I think I'm growing to make that realization. I haven't decided if that's the case, but it does feel that way, considering the big fucking disparity in where their albums are placed on this list. But yeah, it was an enjoyable album. I was not disappointed. Next up, we have Mutt by Leon Thomas. Again, just straight, just pretty good R&B tunes, good vocal performances. The title track is great. Feelings on Silent is great. Love Wale on there. Yeah, it's just solid tunes through and through. Not really too many big misses. Similar to the Mustard project, and I guess also similar to the Chef G project as well. And the top of our solid tier, B+ tier, is Yeat's Lifestyle. I enjoyed this more than I thought I would. He kind of went back into his old bag, his old, more rage-esque sounds. And I think it panned out a lot better than it did on an album like Afterlife, which I listened to last year, and I was not very fond of. It was solid. Like, a lot of the tracks I liked, a big majority of them were quite fucking good. Quite good. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. We're moving up to our A tier for good albums. And at the bottom of our A tier, we have Quadeca with Scrapyard. I know this is another pretty hot take. This was a very highly praised album. Stylistically, it's not really my palette of music, if you get what I'm saying. But there wasn't really... There were dull moments. I'm trying to phrase this differently. There wasn't a single song that was all a dull moment. Every song had a moment that was enjoyable, but not every song was enjoyable as a whole. I'd say maybe a little under half of them for me personally, for my tastes, were enjoyable to that point. But I do give a lot of credit, and it goes into the rating when an artist is ballsy enough to experiment in the ways that Quad did on this. So I thought it was a good album. It just wasn't a lot of stuff that I'm seeing myself like, oh, I'm gonna keep bumping this. There are just songs that I'm like, oh, if this comes on, I'd totally vibe to it, but I'm not going out of my way for it. Next up, we have Powers Pleasance, Life Sucks. This was a fun project. I really did enjoy this project. Not too many misses on here. A lot of fun tracks, like Baby Boy is Drunk is a very fun track. But the biggest highlights on here are the appearances made by Denzel Curry and Joey Badass. They both show up more than once. Joey Badass 3 times, Denzel twice, and they really kill it. They really do. Ball Alone is probably right now my favorite track on here. Maybe not the best, but I've been bumping the shit out of that. That track is awesome. And yeah, there are a lot of just really fun tracks on here. Nothing super exceptional, nothing super crazy going on, but like I came out of that on being like, huh, that was fun. After that, we have Rome Street's and Derringer's Hatton Garden Hold Up. So there's some sameness on here, but not to a degree that makes the songs worse, if you get what I'm saying, just because Derringer's production is very strong and Rome Street's flows are good. Like, this isn't the best work I've seen from Rome Street's. I think most people can agree that that's the case for this album, but the rapping is there. And you're making a good product on every song. Just, again, nothing that's standing out a whole lot. The Westside Gunn feature was fun. Conway feature was good. Schoolboy Q feature, very good as well. And yeah, there's not much else to say about that project. Next up, we have Rhapsody's Please Don't Cry. Some highlights, some lowlights on here. The only really big lowlight is Lonely Girl or Lonely Girls, whatever that one's called. That was a little bit of a hard song to get through, but she's just great at rapping. Her flows are good, her bars are good. The meaning's there, talking about like misogyny in rap music, talking about misogyny in society in general. Yeah, I just think what she stands for is good. What she's spitting is valuable stuff to hear, and a lot of the songs do pan out in a way that is enjoyable. So it was a good album. Next up, we have Mike Dean, fully instrumental project, 424. This was just straight through. I just really enjoyed. I don't know what there is much to say about it. There's no lyrics on this album outside of "It's in the Water" on "It's in the Water." I just really like what he did on here. I think all the songs are either really fucking spacey and fun, or like "It's in the Water" hit really fucking hard. So it was just a good instrumental project. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Moving on, we got Westside Gunn's Still Praying with DJ Drama. DJ Drama! Gangsta Grizzles! It was pretty good. There were some misses. I was a little disappointed. It's not what I expect out of Westside Gunn at this point. He's definitely made better. So, there's nothing crazy going on. The highlights are big highs. A lot of the tracks are pretty good, but there are a few rough misses on there. Moving on, we got 1999 Write the Futures Collective, their project Hella, which has a lot of fun collaborations on there and a lot of variety between tracks. I don't know what happened with Spiky Boys, where you heard that beat and decided that you would throw Smino and fucking Ghostface Killah on it. And I don't know who made that decision, but they're a genius. Because that beat if you played that beat without me hearing who's on it, I would never pick those two. But those two went on it. Crazy collaboration in the first place, and they killed it. And Rich Brian killed it too, but he's part of 1999 Write the Future. So that's not like as, eccentric of a collaboration to throw in there, if you get what I'm getting at. But like Slopes with Offset, Warren Hugh and Offset going back and forth like they did was awesome. There's so many songs on here. Conway and Westside Gunn on Mint Chocolate, also great. There were some misses on here, don't get me wrong, and it was very long, but there's so many different sounds going on that the length isn't making it too boring. So overall, I'm just getting a lot of sounds, even if it's a song that I don't like. I'm like, that was still something new. So overall, it was just an enjoyable listen. Moving on, we got SZA's Lana, also known as the Deluxe for SOS. Little disappointed, just because labeling it as part of SOS, throwing it on to SOS, gives me pretty high expectations. It was nowhere near as good as SOS on its own, but still very good regardless, because, it's SZA. She's great. I understand why she made it a deluxe, despite it being 15 new tracks, which could be its own album. It's because of the quality of it. Like, again, not that it's bad, but, like, if this were to come out as a whole new album, people are like, oh, this is, like, the next SOS in Control, it would be a disappointment. It would be. Because it's not on that level. So I understand why she released it as a deluxe. That makes sense. That being said, for a deluxe, this is a pretty good rating, I would say. So, shout out to SZA. I enjoyed most of these tracks. A few skips. But, like, Crybaby was great. Kitchen, awesome. Those were my two favorite tracks. 30 for 30, amazing. Kendrick did a great job on there as well. Yeah. Moving on, this is another hot take. I know this isn't a super well acclaimed album. We have We Still Don't Trust You by Future and Metro. I don't love it. I glazed the shit out of this when it came out. I had some insane recency bias with We Still Don't Trust You. Came back to it. There are some skips in there. I thought it was skipless at first. There are definitely 3 to 5 somewhere in there that I didn't love on the first disc. But still, going through it, it's mostly pretty good music. Mostly pretty good music. We Still Don't Trust You, the song, very good. Always Be My Fault, very good. All By Myself, or is it called All By Myself? I think it's All To Myself. Very good as well, with The Weeknd on there. And then disc 2. The thing is, on disc 1, Future's hook game is really holding it up. But at the same time, disc 2 is really holding the album up, because disc 2 is a bunch of heaters, which gives this album a lot of points towards my rating and my tiering. Moving on, we have, surprisingly, I enjoyed this album quite a bit. We have Cochise with Why Always Me. Not too many misses on here, just a lot of heaters. Just a lot of heaters on heaters on heaters. Not a lot of sameness between tracks. It was just an enjoyable listen, and that's that. There's not much more to say than that. I would recommend it. It's good. Next up, we got Kaytranada's Timeless. Enjoyable. Even the instrumental tracks that just Kaytranada worked on, put up without any vocals, like the intro track, very good. Pink Pantheress on Snap My Finger, cooked. Do To Me, the Anderson .Paak track, phenomenal. Witchy with Childish Gambino, amazing. So those 3 songs are absolutely massive highlights, and the rest of the album is mostly pretty fucking solid tracks too. Moving on, right above that, we have Lexa Gates with Elite Vessel. She just knows how to rap. That's really all there is to it. She knows how to rap. She's got great flows. Her voice is great for it. The production's good, and that's kind of all there is to it. Shout out to New York. That's the home state right there. New York rapper, new female rapper, even more excitingly, and she cooked. It was a pretty enjoyable album, and not too long either, which I always appreciate when I'm listening to 143 fucking albums. A few of them being pretty short is always much appreciated. Moving past that, we have Benny the Butcher with Everybody Can't Go. Definitely not the best thing I've heard from Benny, but it's not bad. There's a few shitters on here, maybe like 2 or 3, but the rest of it's pretty good. The intro's great, and yeah, that's all there really is to it. Next up, we got Darylled by A$AP Rocky. By A$AP Ferg. Wrong A$AP member. This was surprisingly pretty good. I didn't have super high expectations going into it. Some of the features really cooked. Like Future on Allure was good. Ferg also did a good job on that. Same goes for the track that had Denzel Curry on it. I believe it was called Demons. And yeah, Ferg just gave a surprisingly various listen in terms of sounds. And a lot of them panned out pretty well and made for a pretty decently enjoyable album, especially, again, considering that it wasn't super long. So it was very easily digested. Yeah, and moving past that, we got another Griselda guy after Benny. We got Conway the Machine with Slant Face Killa. Not too many lowlights on here outside of 10/Raya Interlude. That song's terrible. But the rest of it's pretty good. Pretty good. Dasani is all right. I'm still iffy on if I really like it or really don't. It's like one or the other, not in between, and I can't decide. But the rest of it's great. Methback is very good. The Red Moon on Osaka's solid. Surf and Turf, awesome. Some other tracks that I'm not remembering the names of. Just a lot of really good tracks on here. Moving past that, we got It's Us Volume 1 by the Concrete Boys, led by Lil Boat himself. There's some potential in some of these guys, mostly in Camo. Some of his better performances I really enjoyed. I feel like seeing some solo stuff from him in the future. I definitely look forward to a mixtape or an album from him. Yachty, obviously, in the bag that he's been in for the past over a year now. Couple of years at this point. Since Let's Start Here came out, even with his rap music, has just been in a good form. So I enjoy a lot of his stuff on here, especially on stuff like the On the Radar freestyle they put on here, or Cypher as they phrased it. Yeah, it's a enjoyable tape with a lot of people, and I definitely see a lot of potential in some of the Concrete Boys members here, and hope to see more from people like Camo. Next up, we got Yeats 2093. Very experimental, which again, I always respect when an artist is experimental, and I think it panned out great on a lot of tracks on 2093. Very psychedelic and spacey, And I love that sound. That's why I'm a big Travis Scott fan. Obviously, he's not doing it to the same level as someone like a Travis Scott. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not expecting that from Yeat. Artistically, this is very impressive for someone like Yeat. And I don't want to sound like that's discounting him. I'm just saying this is like a level of experimentation I would expect from someone a little more established for their artistry as opposed to their bangers, if you get what I'm getting at. So a lot of Yeat's best songs are on 2093. I'd say most of Yeat's best songs are on 2093, at least from what I've heard out of his catalog. And I was very pleasantly surprised to hear this album. Very pleasantly surprised. Next up, we got Jetson with Raw Tapes. Great title. He took some vocals from some rappers and threw them over beats that he made and sent it. Some of the mixing is terrible because of that, but that kind of is part of the vibe of the project, if you get what I'm getting at. Like, just really raw recordings. It's just raw hip hop. The Joey Badass track is easily the best on here, but Meek Mill's tracks are great. The track with Biggie is awesome. The Cameron track's great as well. Really short, really sweet, really enjoyable. Next up, we got our Grammy winner, Alligator Bites Never Heal by Doechii. Yeah, a lot of potential. Excited for the album that she has coming out. A lot of versatility. Most of the tracks on here are pretty fucking good. A few misses in my opinion. I definitely had some ridiculous recency bias when I first heard this as well. I was like, oh, this is top 3 albums of the year. It's not, but it's still a pretty good mixtape. And yeah, I see a lot of potential in what she could do. She's an incredibly versatile artist, and I hope her album reflects that when that eventually comes out. Next up, we got 21 Savage's American Dream. Mostly just pretty good songs. But something about some of these tracks though, like Dangerous with Dirk, it just goes really hard. Pop Yo Shit, even though it has that crazy poop line, is just really fun. The Thug feature I really enjoy. And of course, a big factor that definitely earned this album some points is Nina, specifically Travis Scott on Nina. One of the, if not the best, top 2 features of 2024. Travis just rapping his ass off in a mode that we've really never seen him in before. So I really hope we get more music from Travis that sounds like that, because it was great. It's just unfortunate for 21 that the 2 best verses on this album were features, being Dirk and Travis. Travis, though, way better than the Dirk verse. The Dirk verse was great. It was amazing even. But the Travis verse just out of frame. Something else. So yeah, it's just some solid 21 Savage tunes with some great features, and one of my favorite tracks of the year in Nina, which is definitely giving it a decent amount of the points that it's getting right here. Next up, we have Bravado Intimo, or is it Bravado and Intimo? Because on the deluxe, it didn't have the plus, but Bravado Intimo by IDK. Not his best project that I've heard, but still very enjoyable. I like IDK quite a bit, and the deluxe just came out for this recently, and I enjoyed it a lot. Song with Joey Badass is probably the best on here. Denim, that song's amazing. I really enjoy the song with Gunna. I really enjoy the song with Conway. I enjoy a lot of the solo tracks like Selena in the Trap, Kickin', Miles Trumpet. There's not a miss on this project. I should just say that. There's not a miss on here. And it's kind of a double album where the songs labeled Bravado are that. They're powerful. They're more rap-esque. And the songs labeled Intimo are more mellow and more R&B. And I think it's cool seeing that duality in his skill, because IDK does have a pretty good singing voice, and obviously he knows how to rap his ass off. Topping out our good tier, our A tier, is Cause the Thief Next to Jesus. I do think critics have overrated this a bit, and I think it's just Cause style that I don't think I can give more credit than I've given here, where it's a lot of almost spoken word, very raspily delivered stuff in a very, I don't want to say monotone, but very like calm way. And he's talking to the listener on here. He's saying some real shit, but a lot of these tracks suffer in replay value. There are definitely some that I still come back to, but just in terms of sheer replay value as an album as a whole, there's not much here, but it's still good. It's still good. Don't get me wrong. It's still good. Just not a lot of tracks that are worth me spinning again, if you get what I'm saying. Like, I'm not leisurely listening to a lot of what he has to say to me, although I do appreciate it. Moving into A+ tier, our great tier. We're starting off actually with a tie between my 2 favorite non-rap projects of 2024. First of which we'll talk about is Billie Eilish's Hit Me Hard and Soft. Although I only liked, I think, 6 out of 11 tracks on here, something like that. The ones that I didn't love weren't bad. And the ones that I liked a lot. Bittersweet, probably my favorite track on here. Then Wildflower, then probably Skinny. Funnily enough, the two of the tracks I didn't love were two of the big ones, Lunch and Birds of a Feather. Not getting the hype behind those, considering the rest of the album I think is considerably better than those tracks. But overall, great listen. She has a great voice. Musically, production-wise, her and Phineas, very good jobs. Very good jobs. Now, the other one that is the contender is Black Odyssey's 1-800-Fantasy. Very fun concept for an album where you call a number that, like, gives you, like, a hotline for falling in love with somebody, like a fake person. And it tells a story. His acting on some parts of it, very impressive, especially on the last track, or maybe it's the second to last track that I'm thinking of. Where it's revealed that it's all a farce, and then it turns out to all be a dream in the end, and it's revealed in a very funny way, very satisfying way at the end, even though it's kind of a cop-out ending for a story. Really enjoyed it. The songs themselves, very good. I don't recall if there are any misses on here, maybe one, maybe two. But I came to this album just because it had a Joey Badass feature, and then I really liked Black Odyssey's performance on that song, and I came to the whole album, and I enjoyed it pretty thoroughly. So yeah, those are my two favorite non-hip-hop albums of 2024. Moving forward, we have Mavi's Shadowbox. Just introspective, vibey, good flows, just good rapping performances all around. There's not much else to say than that. It's really strong. It's really solid. It's really good. After that, we have Coda the Friend and Static Selecta's Once in a Blue Moon. I love Static Selecta. He's a great producer, and he really did cook on this. Yeah, there's not much more to that, to be honest. It's just great production from Static Selecta, and Coda the Friend just knows how to flow on that type of shit. He's just flowing his ass off. He's talking, and that's really all there is to it. Next up, we have Smino's Maybe in Nirvana. It's no love for Rent, but it's still a pretty enjoyable listen. Taquan is probably my favorite track on there. Very good. Ready, Set, Goku. Very fun. In Sync. Very fun. Very good. His singing and his rapping are great, and it shows on here. Nothing special by Smino standards, but still a very enjoyable album. After that, we have Perfect Fantasy by EarthGang, which suffers from an interesting case where more than half of these songs were released before the album came out via the Rip Human Art EP and the Robophobia EP, the former of which I actually reviewed on my list last year because it came out that long ago. So these are like songs that I'm very familiar with at this point. And the same goes for Robophobia too, because the album came out in October and Robophobia came out way earlier in the year. But those are all songs that I enjoy quite a bit. And they're all on the album. So it counts. It definitely counts. And the songs that are added on here, most of them are still pretty good. It's just an odd situation because a lot of the best tracks are among those from the EPs. And I feel like this album struggles from that in the sense that I would have got left from it thinking more highly of it had it been my first time hearing those songs that I had heard on the EPs previously. Because when I'm hearing them listening to the album, it's like it's not new. And I feel like it struggles from that a little bit. It's a little bit of a weird situation going on. Moving on, we have Chris Patrick's The Calm mixtape. This is kind of similar to Mavi, but to a slightly greater extent, where it's just he's rapping his ass off, he's talking, Heat of the Action's a great track, the intro's a great track. There's not a miss on here. Really short and sweet. Just a really enjoyable listen through and through. Next up, we got Joey Valence and Braze and No Hands, where they somehow find a way to modernize the Beastie Boys on some of these tracks. It's really weird saying it out loud like that, but that's really what it is. And I think they cooked. They did a really good job with it. It's very fun. It's a very fun merging of old school and new school sounds. And it just pans out in a great way for them. And I am excited to hear more of them. I plan on listening to their previous album because I hadn't heard it before coming across No Hands. And they're hilarious, talking about blowing checks on Pokemon cards. Starting a song off with John Cena, the way I'm Bing chillin' is ridiculous. And I love that. They're super funny and they know how to rap. And that's what matters. Next up, we got Chief Keef's Almighty So Too. Probably my favorite drill project to date. I really enjoyed this. Maybe only 2 misses on here, and the hits hit. And he produced everything himself, which is vastly impressive. incredibly impressive. It's all Chief Keef, the entire album outside of the features. And he does this thing where all of these songs are longer than you think they need to be, but it just feels right. 123 is the example I like to use. That's my favorite track on the album. It's just Chief Keef, and it's like 5 minutes long. There are maybe 3 times towards the end where it feels like it could end, and it doesn't. But it keeps going, and it just makes me like the song even more, what he does with it. And he does that on a lot of songs, and it's just awesome. So yeah, Chief Keef really cooked on Almighty So Too. Really happy with that. Moving up, we got Future and Metro Boomin's We Don't Trust You. This album's awesome. I think most people agree that this album is awesome. Future is just... He's Future. Metro is producing out of his fucking mind on here, of course. And we have some of the most memorable songs of the year, like That, which is probably the best feature of the year, beating out Nina, most likely. I go back and forth between those two. But Kendrick Lamar, you got Travis on Cinderella Travis and Cardi on Type Shit. Travis is, oh my god. The Travis bridge on Type Shit is something else. It really is. But yeah, it's just... It's just peak. It's really just peak. Future's just on timing. The features are on timing when they show up, like Rick Ross. Everyday Hustle's great. Metro's production's amazing. It's just really good. I don't need to say much. You guys have all listened to it. We Don't Trust You. Right above that, we got Code of the Friend again with Lyrics to Go Volume 5. Or it's just called Lyrics to Go 5. I'm not sure. This is a similar situation to Once in a Blue Moon, the collaborative effort with Static Selecta, but just even better. The production's even better. There are a couple of tracks that are done by Static Selecta, so that checks out. And he's telling stories on some of them, on most of them, like Alabama Hills and Vienna, which are my 2 favorite tracks. And it's just deeper and more thoughtful, and the production's even nicer, and his rapping is even better than on Once in a Blue Moon. So I had to give it some extra points, obviously. Lyrics to Go Volume 5, a very, very good project from Code of the Friend. My biggest shock of the year, Big X the Plug's Take Care. Never had really listened to Big X the Plug. I underrated him. I didn't know that he had that dog in him like he did. This album is awesome. It's probably my most played album so far in 2025, because out of everything that I've been listening to while playing catch up with music releases, it's the album that I came back to so much, because it's not super long. Every song is good. He's just rapping his ass off. His "ay" before a lot of his verses is super satisfying. His super deep voice just sounds nice with his flows. His flows are good. His rapping just in general is good. His bars are good. His storytelling on songs like 2 a.m. are good. The way he made a song like Therapy Session, very good. Is a banger. The Largest is a banger. The outro is phenomenal. The song before the outro, Rich Off Rap, is phenomenal. The intro is phenomenal. It's just a really hard-hitting album from start to finish. And I have so much appreciation for it. He really fucking cooked, and I need everybody to know Big X the Plug is really that guy. Next up, Underdog of the Year, Ditaje with Lone Borealis. I came across Ditaje because the music video for his first single he released for this album happened to show up on my recommended when he had about 2,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. And I listened to it. It was called Janice. It was awesome. I really liked it. So I subbed, turned notifications on. I get a notification. Abyss. Another music video for another single for this album that he's planning to release called Lone Borealis. Abyss. Arguably better. I'm not sure if I like it more, but it is really fucking good too. Had to check the album out, and it did not disappoint. Very clear influences from people like Tyler, the Creator. But similarly to how Saw Baby did with like his Cardi and Gunna influences, he transforms it into his own sound in a big way. There are 2 songs on here that I really hated, but everything else I really fucking enjoyed. Girlfriend is a great track. Thought We Were Friends is a great track. Abyss and Janice are awesome. Maintenance Required, although there's not a lot of rapping on there, is cool. He did a lot of the production himself, which is very impressive. And yeah, I mean, Equinox a la Tren, I think is the name of that one track. Awesome. Concert 99 is hilarious and awesome too. It's very cool. Check it out. Super interesting vibes. Super unique sound. I know a lot of you guys probably haven't heard of Ditaje, so check out Lone Borealis. It's worth it. Trust me. Next up, we got Corday with Crossroads. Just an overall really strong album. No misses on here. His rapping's good. The singing that happens is good. I do think I had a hard time balancing stuff similarly to Perfect Fantasy by Earth Gang, but to a different degree with songs that had already released. I feel like I would have known more solidly my rating for this album a lot earlier, had me listening to that album been the first time I heard Syrup Sandwiches and Saturday Mornings and Summer Drop. Because Saturday Mornings, that Wayne feature is one of the best features of the year. That song is easily one of my favorite songs in the year, probably even top 10 maybe. That song's incredible. And same thing goes for Summer Drop. I love that song. And Syrup Sandwiches, I love the Joey Badass feature. So I feel like if I had heard those songs for the first time when I listened to the album, I would have known how I felt about it more solidly, more quickly. But it is what it is. I still feel great about that album. It's really fun. His rapping's good. Again, no misses. Storytelling, it's on the level that Corday's been at, which is a good one. A high level. See what I did there? Those who know get it. Next up, this is another hot take, but the inverse of some of the other ones I had. Might Delete Later by J. Cole. I know a lot of people shat on this. I really, really enjoyed Might Delete Later. I really did. And it keeps me excited for the fall off. I think the fall off's going to be awesome. He recently dropped Clouds. I've had that on repeat since it dropped about a week or so ago as of the time I'm recording this. It just has me even more excited for the fall off. I think the fall off has potential to be album of the year 2025. I'll see you guys next year on that tier list. See if I was right about that, if it comes out. But no promises there, I guess. But Might Delete Later. It has Fever, which is probably J. Cole's worst song ever. But everything else on there is really strong. You're starting off with fucking Pricey is amazing. You go into songs like Crocodile Tears and Ready and Huntin' Wabbits. Really good. Hide Your Bitch is lower on that list. It's still good, but it's lower on that list. But you have like Sticks and Stones, 3001, Trade the Truth, and Ibiza. It's just Cole, like it's like a pen exercise. He's just barring up a lot, and it shows, and it's really good, except for Fever. Next up, we have J. Cole again. I wasn't thinking about putting this on the tier list until I listened to it, and it was as good as it was. The deluxe 10-year anniversary edition of 2014 Forest Hills Drive added 8 new tracks, and most of them were phenomenal. The ones that weren't phenomenal were still very good. The first 4, I mean, you got Home Soon is amazing. Die Together is incredible. Winter Wonderland is awesome. Keep Heaven Dancing is great. The other 4 are still strong tracks, just not on the same level as those 4. But, like, it's like some of the best work we've seen from J. Cole this decade, the off-season included, these new tracks. So I had to throw it on the list. It's really something else. That's all I have to say. Topping out our A+ great tier is Don Toliver's Hard Stone Psycho. Best trap album of 2024 by far. This album's incredible. I loved it. There's only one song I don't love. The outro I really don't like. Everything else is great. Inside, awesome. The Travis feature is cool on there. Ice Age, Travis feature on there is also good, but Don really does his thing on that song. Obviously, Bandit and Tore Up. Everybody's talking about those all the time. Those songs are phenomenal. Those are on the favorite songs of 2024 list as well as Kryptonite, the intro. Not talked about enough. That song's amazing. Yeah, Hard Stone Psycho is just great. Hard Stone Psycho is an example of someone doing what people like Destroy Lonely were trying to do, and it panning out, getting that rock sound into your music. And the collaborations he's done with Yeet as a result of them kind of entering similar veins with 2093 and Hard Stone Psycho has been pretty fucking dope. So yeah, we are now entering top 10 albums of the year. Ranking it at number 10, we have JPEG Mafia's I Lay Down My Life For You. He's got some of those ho-scaring tunes, as he's known for, but also some pretty introspective and thoughtful cuts, like Loop It and Leave It is awesome. I wish it was longer. The verse is only like a minute long, but it's beautiful. Either On or Off the Drugs, again, one of the best songs of the year. I'll be right there, or I'll be there waiting. I'll be right there. I think that's the name of it. I'll be right there. Another great track. And then again, the ho-scaring tracks are pretty good too, like Sin Miedo. Sin. I'm saying it like such a fucking gringo. Sin Miedo is awesome as well. The intro, awesome. There's not a miss on here. And again, that variety you get between the fucking crazy out there electric guitar fueled tracks and then songs like Either On or Off the Drugs is really nice. And yeah, I don't have any complaints. No notes. JPEG Mafia cooked on here. Next up, No Worries, which is the collaborative of Anderson .Paak and producer Knowledge. Why Laud. This is awesome. Just vibe straight through, whether that be through calm mellow rap flows or singing on songs like Daydreaming, which is probably my favorite track on there. Awesome. Walk On By is amazing. Earl Sweatshirt's feature on there is incredible. Again, not a miss on here. Even the instrumental track like Looking, awesome. It's just, again, through and through, great singing, great rapping from Anderson .Paak, great production from Knowledge. It's just a really good album. Moving right past that, we have King of the Mischievous South Volume 2 by Denzel Curry. Literally just bangers. The only song I don't love on here is G's Up. Bangers on bangers on bangers on bangers. And the deluxe that was released for this, which I didn't review separately, I'm kind of just like... He said it was kind of the whole project when he released it, but even if I'm taking into account, it doesn't really change my review, because the deluxe that was released, just King of the Mischievous South, was awesome. Like, Still in the Paint, Got Me Geeked, those songs are awesome. But just looking at the original release, it's bangers. It is bangers. You got Black Flag Freestyle, Ultra Shit, Hot One, Hoodlums. It's just so good. Hit the Floor, fucking Wish List. It's Denzel Curry in his banger bag. It's not on the same level as something like Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, which came out in 2022, but it's still awesome. Next up, we got Vince Staples with Dark Times. Very introspective, very thoughtful, very deep, mostly pretty mellow, and I just really like it. His flows are great, his rapping's great, what he's talking about is awesome on tracks like Lil Homie, Children's Song, Government Cheese, Black and Blue, which is easily one of the best on there. Radio is a very cool track. Justin is a very cool story. Super neat shit going on in there. Next up, we got Logic with Ultra 85. This was a shocker. This is probably my favorite Logic album. Again, there's not a miss on here. He's just rapping his ass off. The intro to this is another one of those best tracks of the year. Paul Rodriguez, one of Logic's best songs. One of the best songs of 2024. Logic is rapping. Awesome album. Straight through. The skits that happen, even the ones that are within the songs, super cool. It's very good for just the album listening experience, just when you're listening to it straight from start to finish. And despite it being a pretty fucking long album, it is awesome. Now we're entering our top 5. Now these next two, numbers 5 and 4, could really go either way. But number 5, Mock Hami. Hashtag rich ass Haitian. Oh my god. So the conductor shit I was talking about before, Sur les Ponts d'Avignon, also known as Reparation Number 1, is my favorite conductor beat and one of my favorite pieces of production in all of 2024. It's beautiful. And a lot of the production is almost on that same level on Rich Ass Haitian. It is an amazing project from Mock Hami. I love it. Start to finish. Awesome. You even got like the more dancey track that Kaytranada produced, the title track that also has O3 Greedo on it. Awesome. The Black Thought feature is dope. Serpent and the Rainbow is amazing. As I said, Sur les Ponts d'Avignon, probably my favorite track. Well, definitely my favorite track on there, is incredible. Lon Lon, awesome. Mock Hami's voice is great. His flows are great. His rapping's great. This album's amazing. Now, at number 4, Lupe Fiasco's Samurai, with what is easily the most interesting concept album we've seen in 2024 and one of the most interesting of the decade and even of all time. Taking the position of a character who is an alternate universe version of Amy Winehouse if she were to become a battle rapper because of a voicemail that she had left about writing battle raps. That's awesome. It made me love the album so much more because I didn't know that on my first listen. I just kind of went in blind, and then I saw that. I re-listened. I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. His flows are incredible. Number 1 Headband is easily one of my favorite tracks on there. Super cool how things tie into the theme. And also the songs themselves are awesome. It's only 10 tracks. It's like a half an hour long. It's super dope. I actually re-listened to it start to finish today. It's just an incredible concept, and it's great execution. So I don't have much else to say. Entering our top 3... Number 3, we got Schoolboy Q with Blue Lips. I've been obsessed with this album since it dropped. There's maybe one song that I don't really come back to too much on here that I didn't love. And everything else is great. And again, variety is key for a great listening experience. No 2 songs sound the same on here. Yearn 101 is awesome. Pop is awesome. Blue Slides, incredible. Thank God for Me, best song on the album. One of the best songs of the year, again. The intro, even Funny Guy, even though it's just saying bring the dope, bring the hoes, bring the money bags in, it's still just, it's dope. coincidentally. It's just bangers on bangers. Well, I guess bangers isn't the right word because some of these songs like Blue Slides and like Ohio are a little more mellow. But Ohio, again, awesome. Freddie Gibbs features great. Foe with Ab-Soul, awesome. There's nothing really bad I can say about this album except for the one track that I didn't love, which is I think the one with AZ Chike. I think it was called Movie. But everything else is just hitting on here. I love this album with a strong passion. Now we're entering out of our S tier for amazing into S plus for our top 2 albums. And I think you guys probably have narrowed it down pretty well. Number 2 is Kendrick Lamar's GNX. GNX. Very much more dumbed down than a lot of his previous stuff. Definitely, I haven't listened to Section 80 because I'm a fake Kendrick fan. I've only listened to some of Section 80. But out of what I've listened to, which is everything else, it is probably bottom 2 Kendrick albums for me, but that doesn't really mean much because the bar is out of the ceiling of the building I'm in, which is 6 stories high. So it's pretty phenomenal. You got bangers, you got Squabble Up, you got fucking Peekaboo, you got Hey Now, which is easily the best one of those types of songs in my opinion. And Dodie Six's feature on there is one of the best features on the album. But then you also have Luther, which is one of the best songs on the album. You also have Gloria, one of my personal favorites. And you also have a song like Reincarnated, which is one of the best written songs of the year, one of the most interesting song concepts, and it's fucking awesome. And it's all over the place in a great way. The only complaint that I have is that the title track is fucking ass, and it's easily Kendrick's worst song because of how weird the piano loop is on there. And it's just the piano loop. If the piano loop was gone, the song would probably be fine. But I don't know, it's pretty shit. It's not for me, that title track. But the rest of the album is amazing. Luther, great song. Hey Now, great song. Reincarnated, great song. Whacked Out Murals, great song. It's all great music. It really just is, except for the title track, GNX. But, again, Process of Elimination is probably a little easy here. Album of the year, which I re-listened to from start to finish as a little victory lap after I had finished finalizing the list. Chromacopia. Tyler, the Creator's Chromacopia. Chromacopia. Awesome album. Just edges out, pause, GNX by a tad bit, but I do like it a bit more. There's not a miss on here. Again, the variety that you get going all over the place from Saint Chroma to Ratata to Noid to, I think it was Darling I after that, to Judge Judy, etc., etc., etc. You got fucking Tomorrow, I Killed You. The production is incredible, and Tyler did all of it himself, as he usually does. Production's incredible. His rapping and his singing are incredible. Like Him is a phenomenal song. Thought I Was Dead is a phenomenal song. My personal favorite's probably Noid, but Like Him is definitely up there. Darling I is definitely up there. Ratata, most of the songs are definitely up there. It's just great. He gets in a really introspective bag talking about real problems that a lot of people face, especially on a song like Take Your Mask Off, which is another incredible track. Just relatable, talking about problems with like, oh, I'm old and I'm not having kids and I don't know if I want to and I don't know if I should and I don't know if I can. And the whole Judge Judy story, the Hey Jane story more specifically is a very compelling one. It's just super vulnerable, and I really appreciate when an artist can do that. Therefore, Chromacopia is my album of the year for 2024. So that's going to wrap things up for the tier list. This is the final tier list right here. You get it. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching here. You can hate me in the comments if you want. I will be reading the comments. I have a fun time with that. I had a blast last year seeing the people who disagreed with me or the people who agreed. Either way, we're all allowed to have our own opinions. It's all subjective. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Video is only 20 minutes longer than last year's, which is pretty good considering I listened to 63 more albums. So I'll take it. 143 albums in an hour 40. Not too bad. That's an average of less than an album per minute, including the fact that I'm talking right now and I was talking before we started making the list. So I hope you all enjoyed. I had a great time. Please subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 pretty soon. And I'm probably streaming the day that you're watching this because I stream every day on this channel right here, as well as on Twitch at twitch.tv/yourboypantsx. So I hope you enjoyed. And let me know what you guys think about these albums. And I will see all of you in the next one. Deuces.